I have two things. One, under public comment, I guess it's the first paragraph, the third sentence from the bottom. It says community between the CPD to the community. I think that should be communication. Mine says community between the CPD to the community.
There was a last minute change in spelling.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm looking at the one I read for preparation before I got here. So, okay. All right. The second item is under open discussion, second paragraph. And this the second sentence is not exactly correct in terms of what happened. It can be fixed by just striking the second sentence.
And we're striking, I'm sorry, again, can you?
The second sentence in the second paragraph of open discussion.
Okay,
That was
Yeah.
actually, it was a comment I was making, but yeah.
Right.
that's it, Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
okay. Do you want your name attached to that comment?
I don't think it's necessary.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
okay. Other additions, corrections? If not, motion is on the floor to approve. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions, so ordered. Next order of business is the public comment period. We have anybody signed up externally? Suzanne, you're on. Go to the mic, please. Indicate who you are.
Suzanne Hardy. Do you have a copy of this in front of people or?
I did disseminate a copy of.
Okay, so I'm not gonna read it. I'm just gonna go over it. The first one I want to cover is
Can you
really
identify what organization and what you're speaking to, please?
from Charleston Area Justice Ministry, and the topic I'm talking about is the follow-up from the external assessment of the racial bias audit. A couple parts of that. The first one is, it's really more FYI for you all, is the key commitments that have been made and the follow-up actions we've requested related to that report. Two specific things. We met with both Mayor Tecklenburg and Mayor-elect Cogswell and obtained agreement or commitment from both of them for two things. One is to hold CPD accountable to develop and then implement a plan to reduce racial disparities based on the results of the ERA. And that's important because a lot of years have passed and we have not made progress. So we asked specifically for that commitment. And then also the commitment to conduct quarterly engagement, community engagement meetings in partnership with CAJM, and subsequently we agreed in partnership with Park and CPAC, so that we would disseminate the results of the ERA and discuss ongoing CPD's plans to address them. One of the things pointed out in the report, and that we've been, well, actually in the very original report from 2019, and then again recently, is that it's really important to have community engagement, difficult conversations, sharing data, being transparent to create a safe environment for all of us. So that has not happened, but we have gotten the agreement especially from Mayor-elect Cogswell, to ensure that that happens. And we'll be looking to you all to help us enforce that. The other one we called out to public safety, and we'll call attention to the City Council next week, is there were two particular findings that in the report that really need immediate follow-up. One of them is the racial disparities in motor vehicle stops, where Black drivers are stopped and warned at higher rates than expected. That's not new, but the clarity is when stopped for a moving violation or non-moving violation, Black drivers are more likely to receive a warning for the offense than white drivers. which really is about enforcement strategies and training. And it's an area which could be low-hanging fruit, but clearly needs to be addressed because it's a big difference. And the other one is similar in that Black drivers also appear to be, well, not appear, they are searched at disproportionate rates compared to white drivers. Specifically, when for probable cause searches, contraband is found on white drivers 70% of the time, as compared to 53% of the time from Black drivers, meaning Black drivers are stopped and for no real cause for that, which is again clearly a training and a strategy that CPD needs to be looking at. So we wanted to call those out for immediate attention because there are a lot of things in the report and we don't want those to get lost. The second one, and this is moving a moving target a little bit. What we've started to work on and what you have been given is a proposed outline for a community engagement meeting. And the first one we're talking about was a town hall. And the idea is, as Bob Kale shares his initial data with the community, and so that there's transparency and everybody knows about it, we want that to be a big deal because CPD has had the experience that when they call the community together, which is not effectively called, people don't show up. And we know they do show up when they're invited and they're clear about what's going on. So we want to take the opportunity with the first results being shared, hopefully to hook that up with Martin Luther King events, that could be one of the official events sponsored by a number of organizations in the community. And we are looking with Bob Kale about how do we make that happen? And here's his leadership? How far does that go? How far can Cajun and Hart get involved to help? We know we need to help. We hope we can help more rather than less. So we outlined, basically an agenda for doing that. But the key part of that is making sure that the data is shared transparently and that we have a lot of people from a lot of walks of life from the community to show up. We would, after sharing the data, we will have breakout sessions where people can hopefully discuss it and identify the questions they have so that for follow-up actual community engagement meetings, which we hope to start in February, CPD is clear on what the questions are the community has and what they need to address. We have been informed that CPD is unlikely to share any plans at the January meeting for what they're going to do going forward, which I think is going to be awkward, but hopefully they'll hear from folks what people want to see in terms of action. So anyway, that's really a plan. We'll be getting back with you after we meet with Bob Kale and find out what his involvement is. And likely we'll want to start to create a group of HARC, CPAC, and CAJM that'll actually start to make the community meetings happen. And it's only a question of how much this first town hall is kind of one of those or not one of those. Questions?
Right.
Does that make sense?
That's fine. Thank you. Anyone else? Public comment? So the reason I wanted to put this public comment section before chairman's comments, I wanted to update the members of HARC. I did attend the Public Safety Committee meeting this week, where the department responded, if you will, to the invitation of the Public Safety Committee to discuss the report. In essence, what they reported was that they were reviewing the report, deliberating internally, and that they would, in fact, make a presentation to the city council at some point in terms of the recommendations that they found feasible to implement. In addition to that, that they were involved in planning the final component of the contract, which is this public presentation of the document. During that conversation, I suggested that CPAC, well, not CPAC, HARC had indicated a desire to participate in the planning. and that I thought that it would be effective, but we were still exploring that. The response in part was that, the HARC and CPAC would be asked to participate in the outreach to generate the crowd, to which I said, we really need to plan the party, okay, as well. So we can make sure that we're inviting folks and they know what they're coming to and the like. So that was kind of what was left. I was informed today that, and to clarify the situation, and we'll hear later on tonight at CPAC, whether or not this is affirmed, that the department sees itself as being responsible for coordinating the logistics for where the sessions are going to happen and those sort of things, based on what Bob Kale asked them to do in terms of structuring the meeting. If this is information or other information from our discussion, is our recommendation, or part of this is our recommendation to send to Bob, then he will then communicate with the department, and then things will move forward in terms of the partnership. So everybody's role will be clear in that regard. So, yes, Carol.
Are we having a discussion about this,
Yes.
Mr. Co-Chair? So I guess if we're going to live into what we said, that we do want to be part of the convening organizations for the public presentation, then why wouldn't we just begin to evaluate our opinions for the Cajun proposal for involving Martin Luther King weekend with the YWCA, and speak out of one voice if we think that's a good idea. We shouldn't have two different tracks to go on that we're going to send our interest, our availability and interest to the CPD, and then expect them to, either say, yes, they're going to organize it and come back to us. It seems like that's a waste of time is my bottom line.
I must have miscommunicated to you. My intention is, if we endorse this, we will say to Bob, who is designing the session, this is what we think should happen. CPD's responsibility, as I understand it, is to make sure that the space is available and whatever technology he thinks needs to be supportive, that's their responsibility, not the design of the session and the like. With this, my understanding is that they interpret the contract as saying he's responsible for this designing of the meeting and the presentation.
So you're asking us to agree with the Cajun proposal, that that's what should happen,
If
and that's what we're
that's
going to
correct,
send
that's the plan.
forward to the CPD.
Mhm.
All right, well, are we going to take a vote on that?
If somebody makes a motion.
I will make a motion that we agree with the Cajun rough outline for January town hall meeting. I think my main condition is that it be seamlessly coordinated with the plans that the YWCA are already shepherding and sponsoring, because they do have a whole game plan that's going to expand the number of events and the days that they occur on. So we don't want to have any conflict with the Y. And I'm on the board of the YWCA, so I'm happy to, if those parties haven't really gotten together in any sort of, it's December 14th. We have a month. So, okay, that would be part of my motion, that we make tracks to get this done.
Second. Moved and probably second. Other questions, discussion?
I do have a couple of questions. I'm not familiar with, the kinds of groups that we're thinking would be invited. As an example, I would assume we're going to invite veteran groups. I would assume we're going to invite business groups, churches, HOA groups, that we're really going to go out to get a very wide representation of the community. And, without seeing who's going to be invited, that's the one caveat I'd have, is we want to make sure we get a truly representative coverage of the citizens of Charleston.
So I think the intent is to have as broad a participation as possible. Is not only inviting the members of your congregation or your lodge, but this is a community conversation. And quite frankly, one of the things I think would be informative and very appropriate, the Lens Foundation, which is in essence the Police Support Foundation, has a series of events, and they're being invited to participate and make certain that their membership participates, right, would definitely be very helpful. And I would, as part of our conversation, urge that the organizers to reach out to them in that. So additional comments, concerns? So the motion is to endorse the outline framework, to do what we can to have it aligned with the programming and not in conflict with the programming of the Y. We're affirming the fact that we're hoping to have a wide-ranging participation of the entire community. That is the intent, right?
I would just have one correction. I mean, I do feel very strongly about why. So instead of doing what we can, we need to ensure that it is aligned with the program. If it can't work that way, then it could be a different weekend. Obviously, that's an opportunity.
So to be frank, my perception is that if we know that there's an event happening, this public meeting about the report, throughout the month of January, all those activities using the platform where people will be talking about King activities and coming together, that is clearly communicated. If it can become formally part of the program, that would be great. You know, in the, I guess it's 11th through the 16th. I think one of the problems with that is that Bob is not available in that. Yeah, so it probably would be the week of the 20th or 21st. And if the WISE calendar can accommodate that to make that part of the schedule, that'd be great. I mean, I think that's the one challenge that we have unanswered.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. Any unreadiness on the question? If not, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
All opposed, nay.
Abstentions?
Abstention.
Motion passes. Welcome, Stephen. Glad to see you out there in Cyberland. I think. He was there.
Who was there? Oh, I'm here, but I'm a little under the weather. I don't think anybody wants to see me.
Sorry to hear that.
Sorry to hear that.
Co-chair,
Yeah.
comments?
About the agenda or previous, any comment?
Any comments? This is co-chair comments.
I
Look,
apologize for not being here last. live Gaza Strip, living in Gaza, Damascus. I can't say that they all, but there's probably contingent that are, there are lots of activities, there are terrorist, overwhelming else. 2008, they had Democratic crisis, basically elect new leadership. My dad was born in 19 all living inside. He calls it first, he tells us. I'll say the second says.
I'm so sorry. Can we all use the mic?
Yeah,
please?
I was waiting for open comments, but if it's appropriate, I have some things I can add. I did go ahead and participate a couple of weeks ago, or maybe last week, at Circular Congregational Church for a vigil for peace. That really was an attempt because at this point, there have been plenty of public rallies for Israel, and in our city, there are increasingly rallies for Palestine as well. This was an event that was attempting to try to create a space to acknowledge the grief that is being felt all the way around. We've been in touch with the Charleston Interreligious Council and their head, Dina Moses, who, you know, I've talked to on the phone, and she said it's a very sensitive time and it's very hard to figure out ways to bring the community together. I was happy to see some Jewish and Muslim leaders present at that vigil that I spoke at. But it continues to be my hope, and I think this is the direction that the Interreligious Council is going, that a place, hopefully, for common ground is, can we all agree that anti-Semitism and Islamophobia in our own community should have no place in our community. And so the Charleston Interreligious Council is using January as an interfaith harmony month. They are making a proclamation on January the 3rd that's going to be read by young people, Jewish and Muslim young people, to that effect. And they're going to be encouraging faith communities to try to find tangible ways to do things to bring about understanding. At St. Stephen's, we're going to be using the month to offer introductory classes on Judaism and Islam, and that's going to be included in that press event. But But, you know, I do continue to acknowledge it's a sensitive time. I talked to a rabbi, a local rabbi, about what he might be comfortable doing. I mean, and it's, you know, we're sort of in a place where even to talk about peace is something that another could find a political statement. So.
I just thank Reverend Shoemaker for living into his intentions in the month that has intervened since our last meeting. So I do hope that Hark will be as proactive as an entity for the city as we are individually for each other. So thanks for putting that history lesson on our radar, council member.
Yes, I appreciate your comments, Jason. You know, I think, you know, clearly you have a closer and more intimate relationship with things than any of the others of us do. But, you know, and I totally agree with what Adam says. You know, we need to look for ways to get people together. And it would have been nice if Hamas would have done that on December the 1st and 2nd and 3rd and 4th, but they didn't. And, you know, that creates the dilemma. But, how, you know, getting into this is, you know, I don't think we want to get into a deep conversation about it. Why was there not another election in Gaza since 2007? How do you deal with that? Those things. It's a very complex issue. And, you know, but again, for me, I really appreciate, you know, you condemn Hamas and what they did right off. And that's what we all have to do, because it is absolutely unacceptable for anyone to ever think that that's the way to get attention. That's just not the way for it. So again, I support whatever efforts we have for bringing people together and saying, not again. We don't want that to happen again. So thank you.
I went to the rally that was the night of our the meeting that was
October.
canceled. Yeah, thank you. And it made me uncomfortable even before Hamas was, or even before Israel was really retaliating. And one of the things that made me uncomfortable is just all of the Israeli, I guess, nationalism, and then I think mostly Lindsey Graham's just really warmongering. And I was uncomfortable being there, and I was uncomfortable that our city was in some ways, I guess, condoning that. And I think that's in our wheelhouse for the future. I think one of the ways that, for me, I've been thinking about the conflict is that I want everyone to have human rights and to be free of violence. And that's one way that we can think about things is, supporting, for example, the International Declaration of Human Rights.
Mhm.
So we have kicked to the curb on a couple of different occasions, the exploration of the commission becoming associated with the state human rights. I don't know whether or not the work of that group would be central enough to respond to the kind of concerns that we're expressing here. And as I think I indicated at our last meeting, Mayor Tecklenburg had indicated that that was one of the things that he would hope that we would look into and explore more thoroughly. That is not on high on the list in our action plan, but that is exactly a kind of example of what's happening. The city amended its hate crime ordinance last month to include anti-Semitism. We were not asked to comment on that. That's an example how things can move forward in a fashion intended to be supportive of racial conciliation with tolerance and the like. But then today yesterday I asked the police department where we could find the hate crime data. And the hate crime data is on their dashboard, on the open data dashboard, which highlights the conversation about that open data initiative that was presented to us. It's something that we should support, because if we're capturing the data, when something happens, we have something to go look on. So that's one thing that I think is important to communicate to council and the new administration. There were 24 in the period since January. There have been 24 hate crime incidents recorded, and the majority, 3 of them, were the way they're currently referred to in the database as anti-Jewish. 5 were homophobic, the language that they're using, and 7 were anti-Black. It would seem to me that it would be important at this time, if we're having those kind of conversations, for us to know, and I did ask the department, they haven't responded yet, what's been the data since September. They're not due to report that data until January, the end sometime in January, but that's the normal kind of thing. But it seems to me the moment that we're in, all right, particularly because we can affect what's going on here. We can't affect what's going on in the Middle East, and it's our responsibility to do that. So it's, again, it kind of comes together why a HARC is necessary, or could be useful in terms of directing an initiative like the Open Data Initiative to be helpful to collect data that allows us to look at things in various segments. Question, is there anything that we might do to be supportive of the interreligious thing? That just, is there anything other than perhaps recommending to, maybe this could be one of the things that you say at the presentation, that they should be aware of it, and perhaps something.
Yeah, I actually, do you know Dina Moses? Do you know who that is? Yeah, she's our kids go to the same school, but she's the chairperson right now of the Interreligious Council. She's wonderful. And I would personally think that Dina would, I think they're still evolving their plans for this, and would probably welcome someone like yourself, maybe representing this body, being and being part of the city government, being a part of that event on it's January the 3rd at 10:30 a.m. is my understanding, when the press conference is going to be. I will not be there because I'm about to leave for a sabbatical.
Yeah, so
this is my last meeting. I'm missing the next 2 because I'm going to be away. So 10:30 on January the 3rd. I think it's here at City Hall. Yeah.
So
Zuckerberg will still be in office.
perhaps a motion to request the chair to be present and participate as seen appropriate.
So moved.
I'll second.
We're sending you, so you can't say
Mhm.
that. We're sending you, so you can't go. Moved by Adam, seconded by Carol Jackson. Stephen? Comment on?
Oh, I was commenting on the motion. I was just getting ready to vote.
Any comments? All in favor, please indicate.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstentions, so ordered.
And just a question on the hate crime piece. I assume that something could be classified as a hate crime. It doesn't have to be a physical altercation. This could also include vandalism of houses of worship and,
Yes.
Okay.
If you look at the data, I apologize, I should have brought it. It does, burglaries, assaults,
Mhm.
the number of things in that category. And the department points out that the state does not have a hate crime bill. All right.
Right,
So we don't have the ability to compare what's going on in Charleston across the state. Okay, great. No further comments from the chairs at this point. Moving on to discussion of the HARC priorities and strategic plan. We have gone through the process led by Good Stop to identify priorities and to come up with an action plan. When we began to do that, we were kind of looking at ourselves in terms of what it is that we had to do. We didn't pay a lot of attention to what was happening in the outside world. And lo and behold, there was an election. All right. And the question of what is HARC doing? What should HARC be doing? And the interface becomes even more important now than before. I have had an opportunity to speak with Mayor-elect Cogswell and others have as well. And it's my understanding that as part of his looking at government and government functions, he will be looking at committees and structures and what's productive and unproductive. And he is himself made an effort and committed to make an effort to get smarter about what HARC does and can do. And I think the strategic action document is a helpful piece. Adrian had the opportunity to meet with I'm putting this as context for this discussion, okay? Adrian, you had opportunity to meet with the transition coordinator. Can you share with us what?
Sure. So on Monday, I met with the lead transition, Bob Dawson. He's leading the transition for Mayor-elect Coswell. We had a brief meeting. I indicated to him how HARC became into existence, where we are now and where we're going. He is aware that HARC and the Racial Equity Core Team are in a unit where the Racial Equity Core Team is utilizing HARC as a vehicle as a change agent. And so he is interested more he realizes that we are working internally as well as external. So he's seeing how we were working when it comes to the operational aspect of the city and also when it comes to policies. He also mentioned that there are a few people on Mayor-elect Cogswell's team who specializes in policies. So how that transfers over to the resources that we have, we're open to the opportunity. Want me to say what else who else I met? Case, that's all far as you want me to go?
I'll make sure my mic's on. Sorry, Stephen. I had the opportunity to meet with Mayor-elect Cogswell earlier in the week, and I won't go into the whole conversation, but I got a sense that he is going to govern with a practical sense, govern realizing that the challenges we have in Charleston are really non-political with a big P, meaning it's not Democrat, it's not Republican, which was really reassuring to hear from him. He understands that he's got a lot on his plate. We did talk briefly about HARC. He indicated his support to continue our work, but I think he's at this point just trying to learn, and the team's probably trying to learn. So I would encourage you, Adrian, and anyone else that does get a chance to chat with Mayor-elect Cogswell or the transition team. I think it's going to be incumbent upon us to be proactive about providing information about what we do and not rely on them, because I will tell you this, I'm just guessing, if I was mayor-elect, this is probably one of 100 things that I'm drinking from a fire hose on. So I just want us to be proactive.
So that leads us to the logical discussion of our strategic plan, because if we are to be interacting with the mayor-elect and his transition team and the new city council composition, we need to be speaking from the same sheet of music, so to speak. I think it would probably be helpful, I see, the good doctor here. Would you join us at the microphone and, kind of give us, one oversight about what it is? Yeah, please, there.
Maybe have her sit next to you.
Well, oh, yeah. Yeah. All right.
Don't let it go to your head.
Don't let it go to my head. I'll try not.
No,
Try not.
no, let go to my head.
Oh. Yeah, good evening, friends. It's always great to gather with this group. And I've been listening to the conversation en route here. And I think that from your community feedback and from even the comments made around this table, we're dovetailing nicely into the priorities that we've set forth for HARC for 2024. Not sure if you all have it in front of you, but emailed to you was the first draft of the plan, where we were able to dwindle down over our few meetings together. And then the joint meeting with the Equity Core team, we came up with these 7 priorities, right? And from those 7, I had you all vote, and it came down to 3. We crafted and really refined those 3, and then we sent those out via email and said, give us some feedback and be as critical and constructive as possible. And that you were. I deeply appreciate it. And so now, from the online conversation and even a meeting with your chairs and with Adrian, we have revised and repositioned the 3 priorities that we're proposing for 2024. The first priority, which was the 3rd in the initial draft, is to make HARC a permanent commission of the city of Charleston. I think that resonates with what we're talking about now with our leadership change. How do we want HARC to be sustainable in the city? And having those conversations about what it means administratively for you all to have the resources that you need in order to stay afloat. The second priority is comparable to the initial draft, but we merged the 2. So community partnerships. This is where we brought in that community voice and really leaning into the external opportunities of HARC. So we're going to create some partnerships with community-based organizations, thinking outside of our neighborhood associations, but also with the folks who are providing direct service on the ground, our grassroots folks, and how we can blend with them in order to amplify the things. I think that ties nicely, Ms. Carroll, with what you're talking about with the YWCA and their MLK functions. How do we work hard? How do we work smarter together, or even harder together, but certainly not being redundant? And then the last priority is new. It was not proposed in your initial draft, and this is evaluation of efforts. This goes to, again, to fortify the importance of HARC and why we need it here in the city of Charleston. And so this data collection, our evaluation piece, is going to be very important, especially as we start to prove ourselves to our new leadership, but even to the community at large. Even in the feedback from our community member, when we have reports, what are we doing? What's the follow-up? This is what will sit in that section. So how can HARC evaluate its own efforts, but also support other relevant citywide evaluations? So that racial bias assessment would be one. And there are a string of different assessments, be it racially centered or racially driven throughout our city, that I think we could do a better job galvanizing, so that we're not overburdening community folks, but also, again, being efficient with your time and skills.
So there are actually 2 levels of presentation. One outlines the I call big buckets, okay, and then some of the indicators under the big buckets, and then there is the work.
Then there is the work.
Plan, the work plan, and let's have a discussion first about, see if there are questions about the strategy. The overall strategy, the buckets, and how it's described. Yeah. Any reactions, comments? Does it reflect kind of, we went through a process of thinking, sharing, meeting, and then we went asynchronous. Okay, and then the brain trust tried to think through what we heard y'all say, put it back together. This is our opportunity, right, to say, are we in the right direction? Are we endorsing this, buying this? This becomes a script, if you will, for us in talking to internal governmental partners, external folks. This is who we are. This is what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I think we should hear from Tom, since we took his recommendations.
Well, I said that, Mike. Please.
I said that the number one priority should be to make HARC permanent. And that priorities 1 and 2, the community partnerships and the community voices have great talking points. Personally, I like the idea of the neighborhood association meetings and getting out all of us to talk to them, to tell our story and what HARC is all about and what we're involved with. Because to me, I think it's obvious that we need to promote ourselves a lot more.
Yeah, I gave feedback, and for me, I think that the getting ourselves out in the community and continuing our work are not sure why I'm getting feedback. I think it's more important that we do that first and then come back at the end of a period of time, whatever it's going to be, 6 months, a year, and look at what we've done and the results that we're seeing. And then we will be in a better position to look at, okay, here's the kind of results we can get. Now let's make this, an ongoing thing as opposed to something that, would have an end life. So for me personally, and I gave the feedback, I definitely support I guess did we list them as strategies 1 and 2? But in terms of the making it permanent, in my view, it's a little too soon for that. I'd like to see some more results and us have more discussion about, okay, what would we each really put down as our results for what we've done so far? And to me, those kinds of conversations have not occurred. And so we need to be there, in my opinion, before we make that the number one priority for the group.
I don't see these as contradictory, but complementary. If we want to be a permanent group, we have to do things to show that we deserve permanence. I think these are exactly the kind of things that can work in lockstep with each other simultaneously. That's just my take on it.
So, my interest and concern reallocated 40 minutes to talk about these. These will be the talking points. The expectation would be working with staff and presenting to the public. We develop a script more or less, right? And internalize what this means, because there are words on the page. I mean, there was a discussion about neighborhood groups, all right? And I said, well, we need to talk about community-based organizations. Well, neighborhood groups are community-based organizations, but there are other community-based organizations that are not neighborhood groups. That, so are there things of that nature. So a word, what it means to me might be different to you, but as we actualize it, we need to, to be clear on that. And this is the time to talk about if there's a lack of clarity, all right, or there's something that you want to see more clarified as we move to adopt this. Sure.
And I love the point that you just made, Carol, about having objective data to support the current success of HARC. And in the priority 2 of community partnerships, where I believe on the initial draft, we had community partnerships and voice, but we mushed those 2 together. In those talking points that we'll draft, it will be essential that we have some points about what this group has done since convening from the very beginning. And so that did not fall on deaf ears. And I made a point to make sure that that is considered for talking points. So as you go out into community and even working within staff on the inside, we're all speaking one message, one voice, but you feel confident about those notes. Yeah.
So we have before us a 2-page document that speaks to strategies and goals. I would entertain a motion to adopt that two-page document
As it was amended.
as it's been amended.
So moved.
Moved by Bonnie, your second?
Jerry, I have a question. Which document are we talking about?
Just the top two, the top page,
Twenty
1 and 2.
twenty-four strategic priorities and goals?
That's correct.
So you don't have the updated, Carol, because your updated third should be evaluation.
Was that sent out?
Yes, it was.
I didn't get it.
You're looking at it, sir. You're looking at it. But you see how your third is evaluated? The third, the updated one? I mean, I'm sorry, yours doesn't say evaluation on this. Okay. I just wrote it up. Okay. Okay.
I will resend it to everyone so that you all will have the updated version. I'll resend it to you.
Sure. Okay, so
That's the version of the bottom.
okay.
I can't vote to approve something I haven't seen. I'm sorry, I just can't. I mean, if I've seen it and I've read it, I can vote to approve it or disapprove it, but I haven't seen it, so.
Understand. So can, that's correct.
Can I ask then, so the rest of the documents that were sent to us, the 24 strategic priorities and goals, is there a more detailed set of priority goals, objectives all the way across for the third new framework? So we haven't seen that.
Yes.
So we really can't adopt that. But we can adopt the number 3 overall big picture of evaluation of efforts.
So Adrian will send you all 2 documents. The first will be your big bucket priorities. So those 3 that we just outlined, along with the big overarching goals. And then the second document is the more detailed action plan for 2024.
Yeah, that's.
So yeah, the one that I've seen that we got, I don't know what, about a week ago, I guess it was, maybe 10 days, something like that. It'll be in the same format, but just with the new order and
Correct.
accumulation of things. Okay.
Correct. So it's been updated, giving your thoughts and feedback from the initial draft.
Okay.
Mhm.
Again, I don't feel like I can, say, yes, let's do that if I haven't had a chance to see it.
So, our intention was to have this document, okay, and what I call the lame duck agenda, be part of what was be presented, to the city council as part of, Jason's last meeting. He had requested, I believe he requested, a HARP presentation on the agenda, right? And I'm asking the question about the fact that we would like to use this in the presentation. If we don't act on it now, then we would not have that foundation for the presentation.
Unless Adrian caveats it that this is a working document and, we're working towards this, but this is the existing work that we've got right now. I'm fine with that. I would hate for us not to report this work on December 19th.
Me too.
So what I'm trying to do is work around this. So if I send this document to Jasmine, she's gonna share it on the screen. Yeah, maybe you all can.
Well, I will just speak as a
Mhm.
council member, and support, Carol's concern. And Carol knows this, when you get something on your desk at the meeting, you don't feel comfortable voting on it because you need to review it. You need to digest it, you need to think about it. So I don't want to put folks in the room on the hot seat, having to review something on the fly. So that's my feeling.
Okay, and that's where I was trying to get the sense. If we're comfortable holding off the formal action until our next meeting. If that's your request, Carol.
Yeah, I just want to be honest and say, I just don't feel comfortable doing that.
That's
um,
absolutely fine.
But, I certainly, Jason has been, one of the stalwarts of, obviously, of our work. And, there's got to be some other way for us to put something together for him to use. And, I think we've made good progress on several items and, I'm not sure what the best way to, to pull that together in a presentation document is, but certainly I agree with the idea that we want you to have something and for it to be there, for you to present. So
So Carol, would you feel comfortable us presenting the most recent strategic plan, but also caveat that, Park hasn't officially approved it, but all the commissioners seem to be favorable, and we're just reviewing the documentation.
and that's which one now,
Yeah.
the
The
new,
new version that you're gonna get.
um,
I want to be able to show folks that we are making progress, and that
Right.
document is certainly a data point of progress.
right.
But we have to formally vote on it, right?
There's a motion on the floor, and it's
Right.
just a question of whether or not we formally table it. City council
Well,
kind of thing, you guys would table it,
here-
or vote, we have enough votes to vote you down, so it would be no, I didn't want to
Right,
just go that
right. I
way.
mean, and I understand
that,
that. I mean,
Yeah.
even if I vote no, I mean, if you're gonna
Okay.
vote for it, fine. It's just not unanimous.
Okay,
Um,
we've had good conversation, there's a motion on the floor, all those in favor of approving, say aye. Those opposing, nay.
nay,
Any abstentions? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Stephen? You aye or nay?
I was an aye.
All right, 7 ayes, 1 nay, 1 abstention, motion carries. Wow, parliamentary procedures.
That's right.
Look at us. Look at this. I want to make a comment and observation regarding what I call work plan document. I don't know whether or not, how closely you looked at the one that you got, you received, but it is pretty dense. I mean, it is pretty dense, and it involves work, and very often it says Adrian, all right? Adrian. And my point is that we're going to have to step up, and do, put more time and effort, in that calendar. And I would suggest that, given the moment and hour that we're in, that we not go through that in detail now. But there is a significance, and the point is that, because of the transition process, all right, there will be, new city council members, right, who will not be at the meeting on the 19th, right? So we need to figure out how to get that our information to the entire council, because what's interesting, they're different people when they're together than when they are apart. All right, they are city council, and so it would be important to figure out how we get that done. And Stephen, as our surviving city council member, will be leaning on you to help us figure out how to do that before the official body. Carol?
I just have a question. What does it look like to step up? I mean, should we have some sort of task force that meets outside of our monthly meetings to make this real to us? Because telling us we need to step up and then not dealing with it until our January meeting, I think is, it's self-defeating.
I think that's a great question, Carol. I guess in my initial reaction to that is all of us have different capacities and bandwidth to step up. So I think what Jerry is suggesting, and I think is important, is some of us could probably step into a more active role. But I also think in terms of the longevity of Hark, having someone like Dr. Butler helping. So for me, this is a resource issue. For Adrian, eventually you're gonna need some help. So I see us, you know, two parallel tracks is we've got to step up as a team to provide more, but I think we got to provide Adrian some more support as she moves forward. And that could either look through consulting or it could be another part-time, full-time person. So that's kind of where my head is. But I think it's gonna look different for all of us, Carol. I mean,
So,
you know,
yeah,
you and Jerry are retired.
In the short term, do we have the resources to keep hiring good stock and a full-time staff person? We're not in the budget for any increase, correct? The budget
know
that
it.
starts in 2024?
I was told that the current staffing level is supported and there is money in the budget for additional operating support for Hark. I asked that of Councilman Gregory, Chair of the Ways and Means Committee yesterday morning. We should, Jason, try to get a little bit more granular about that between now and the meeting. I do understand from our current availability of dollars, there are some unspent dollars from the ARPA available, correct?
There is,
Correct.
there is. I'm just not aware that there were funds available from Ways and Means. But opera there is.
So let me finish. So that, have you given us a proposal for continued support services?
So what we wanted to do is have this conversation to determine what your step up looked like, so we could be most efficient with what you have. And so I've already committed to Adrian that Good Stock will be here to support her in whatever capacity, higher or lower needed in order to get the work done.
And in addition, we're still anticipating a proposal from the Community Assistance Program at the Riley Center for the evaluation piece. Those two are anticipated together and in communicating the need for resources. My comment to the members of the ad hoc committee on the budget was that we needed money for that. And I'm informally told that those dollars may be there, but we need to check.
Another thing I wanted to mention with my conversation with Mayor-elect Cogswell was, I think there is a appetite for looking across the organization, across the city, and collapsing some departments, creating efficiencies with other departments. So this might be an opportunity for us to think about our portfolio of work. Maybe it fits under another department portfolio of work. So not to create additional work for you, Adrian, but say for example, we have the Mayor's Office for Children, Youth and Families. I think at one point that was probably 3 or 4 different separate initiatives. Mayor Riley brought them under one umbrella. What I'm saying is you might have a conversation with Mayor-elect Cogswell about our work, Ruth Jordan's work. Maybe there's some synergies there to create a department. And then you can hire a admin or some sort of staff support, you know what I mean? So I think there's a way to use our resources in a more efficient and effective way.
Yeah, I mean, especially as one of our major objectives is community involvement, so.
So one of the things that we have are taking, let's talk about stepping up in the context of our lame duck agenda, all right?
Excuse me.
The BAR.
Sorry, Bowden has his hand up and it's been up for a little minute. So I just want him to.
Bowden.
I'm sorry, Stephen.
Oh, no problem. Thanks. I just wanted to quickly say to you, your point about how we get this to new council members. They will most likely both be there, as well as Mayor-elect Cogswell on at the next meeting.
Thank you for that. We did have an action agenda to bring forward to report out to City Council at a prior meeting, and Tom was responsible for presenting, indicating that we wanted to see council action around the BAR. We were continuing to want to be actively involved in the union peer activity, as well as the work around following up on the assessment report. Both Carol Fry and Carol Jackson have articulated the importance of the housing issue. In the bar situation, our lead person, all right, is Jason, all right? And stepping up means for us to do whatever we need to do as he describes. For union peer, our lead person is Alvin. There is, if you looked in the newspaper, a community advisory board that they're requesting applications for. So you can be put on that. There are other levels. There are two boards. There is the board, and then there's the community advisory board. They're two different things, but that is, this community advisory board is, because we are, to the best of my knowledge, we're not on the large board. There's an opportunity for us to become active in that fashion. Whether it's Alvin or another member, all right, taking responsibility for participating in that and bringing that information back is an example of step up. The article requesting the application was again in the Post and Courier today, which brought it to my mind. And in the third area of the racial bias equity report, Bonnie, who took the lead in our first review of that, right, has indicated that she would be a point in terms of pursuing that. On history and culture, we had young Bob working on that now. Those leads coming back and asking for work or recommending or convening smaller meetings with us in between or attending meetings becomes what, for me, was that means stepping up in the short term until we have more conversation about the work. That's my response to your query.
Okay, well, that was a question that I came with tonight. How did the priorities that we agreed to that I do have an objection to the way you couch the union peer involvement, so I'll get back to that. But those three things that we agreed are the opportunities that HARC has been working toward for the last year plus in taking on concrete objectives that can be accomplished and then demonstrated not only to the council, but to our community that we really do have, you know, a brain as an organization. So I came here tonight not understanding how those three things that we'd already agreed to fit into this, you know, like detailed by January 30th, we have to review our ordinance and agree to make edits and then agree to get them in front of the council. It just seemed like we were trying to create sort of a path that I don't think we can actually accomplish, I guess, to be, you know, perfectly honest about that. So I do want to support the priorities as you have reminded us, Jerry. I do want to make a correction to the way that you just couched the union peer involvement. That was specifically in support of having a Black business owner presence on the pier permanently, not just being involved in the overall game plan for union peer. We were going for the Black business empowerment in the same way that SCASE had presented it to us, you know, many months ago. And Alvin is the point person of that because he is Economic Empowerment Working Group co-chair, and that's the way his heart rolls. So I don't want to lose sight of the fact that that's what we're going for on union peer as our organization here. And if we didn't agree to that, then we need to, you know, like take a step back and agree to that. But that's certainly the way that it came out of HARC many months ago.
If I could, what I presented was shorthand for all you said.
So I think to Carol's point, I think just being clear about our end goal. So BAR, it's a reform of the current BAR small ordinance. And the result would be increased flexibility for homeowners, legacy owners, generational owners, clarity around Union Pier would be, in the end of the, when it's all said and done with, some sort of carved out zoning overlay that supports African-American business owners, which I wasn't here for that. So I have questions about the legality of that and how we get that done. And then the third one was the racial bias audit. So I guess, Jerry,
So
what would be the end goal?
The
like-
end goal is the implementation of recommendations, right, that are in the report specifically as it relates to the area of communication and community engagement, right, and public accountability and transparency with the police.
And I'll also add, once you all get the updated version of the proposed priorities and goals, you'll also note that for the third goal of evaluating HARC's efforts, the very first sub-goal or the priority, the goal under that priority is to advocate for and facilitate city efforts relevant to economic mobility, affordable housing, and local and minority business participation. And so I think having, as you suggested, Carol, that small team strategic planning task force may help us with defining the action steps to get to those very big goals, but indeed having some type of framework that you can present at your upcoming meeting, at least will let Greater Council know what our direction will be, and we can definitely chart the course as that small team to make sure that we stay committed to it. So thank you for all of the feedback on that, but I think we have opportunity in both.
100% sense to me. Thank you.
So to Carol, to your question, so the VAR changes and Renaissance racial bias fits under,
Number 3.
okay.
Mhm.
Okay, because I had the same question you did when I read it. I was like, where do these 3 priorities go? But these 3 priorities are legislative priorities that really are nestled under. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Because you're right, because when we think about, read it against us, something that really struck me.
It says advocate for and facilitate city efforts relevant to economic mobility, affordable housing, and local and minority business participation. So that's the assessment, bar amendment, union pair. Then the second is to establish key performance indicators for HARC relevant to these things. And then 3, helping with the other local assessments that intersect with this. So not only doing it, but measuring how it's done, processing content.
So one additional piece that the council's talked about that will fit, if and when, well, I won't say if, when the VAR small changes are implemented. We've talked at length on council, and I know Carol has mentioned this and a few others regarding the heirs property issues. So heirs property, they had spoke with us 2 years ago. And Councilman Appel, I think Councilman Bowden just started talking about the effort for the heirs property and what they can do, and come to find out their focus is a lot on the rural areas. So there really is no one focused on the peninsula. Maybe it's too late for that, given the demographic changes. But I think it's worthy of a discussion to basically leverage their help and maybe even create a fund to help with some of the heirs property issues, because that's really what happens on the peninsula is you've got an owner that's been in the home for 40 or 50 years. They want to go to the VAR for a roof repair or window repair. They get exasperated, they pack up and they move. Or they want to renovate their home and they can't afford to renovate it, or it's in some sort of heirs limbo. So the heirs property fund could potentially help for the legal support for that. So there's all sorts of things that we can do to address it. And that sentence really helps me, because now I can understand, like, we can fit a lot under that.
The heirs property
that's what we're
support
talking about
for
here.
urban was actually
Yeah.
one of my low-hanging fruit priorities. So you can go back and read that. I'm taking credit. We carve out some money so that Heirs Property Center can work in the urban area. They just had to do it strategically because they didn't have the bandwidth. They're very available if we give them the resources to work on the peninsula.
And my understanding from talking with some folks related to the VAR is that they are very amenable to, let me make sure I get this, how it's going to work correctly. So if you've got an old house, the VAR prefers that you repair it to a certain standard. and people don't have the money for that. So there's apparently city money available to conduct minimal repairs that they will allow so that that family can remain in the house until it leaves the family. When the new owner buys the house, the caveat is they have to bring it up back to the bar standard. That means that the current owners, the current family, the heirs that have been there retain the property. And as I understand it, the money from the city is it's effectively a loan, but it will be forgiven if they retain the property for a certain amount of time. I don't know if all that's been actually executed yet, but that's my understanding of the way things were leaning. So it sounds like it's a pretty good solution.
There's two programs that the city's involved in. The one I think you're describing, Bob, goes by a formal name called Common Cause. It's a partnership between the Historic Charleston Foundation and the Community Redevelopment Corporation. That's the nonprofit. They're not an arm of the city, but they're heavily relied on at this point in time by the city. So Common Cause has there is a set of guidelines. It's a whole operating agreement that Common Cause, enforces with the loans that they give out. I think they've made 7 loans. So they would be a good group to bring in. April Wood is essentially the hands-on manager for Historic Charleston Foundation. And I think it would be great to have her come in. The other program that you mentioned, or that the city does allow, is to put city money that comes directly from HUD under the CDBG grant that the city contracts for every year. And they use that money for basically roof replacements. That's the major thing that they do for existing owners of homes that can't afford to stay in their home.
Carol, in the interest of time, I think this is an important conversation that we need. It is an example of probably a bit offline conversation that could result in us both having a conversation, coming back and saying, we recommend that we do X, Y, and Z in terms of moving forward. So that exchange is precisely what I'm talking about in terms of stepping up. If we could move on to our manager's update.
Yes, just,
Thank you.
I'm not
Sorry.
sure if we want to, Mr. Co-Chair, if we want to, Carol did the metrics.
Thank you. Well, just
You're welcome.
in the interest of time,
Okay,
I don't think we have time tonight to discuss this in detail.
okay,
At our last meeting, Kyle raised a question of how we assess future priorities. And what he's taking a shot at is a draft of identifying 6 particular areas and a set of weighting criteria for us to discuss. I'd ask you to take a look at it, make comments, and be ready for us to discuss it at the next session.
okay. I'll be sure to put that.
Could I
on.
make just one comment on that? Again, this was a very quick and very high level. I mean, it as far as I'm concerned, it could change 100%. However, it's important, and I would like to make sure that we give an opportunity at the next meeting to discuss this. Because the feedback I gave on the strategic priorities and the goals was that I had a hard time following what we had done previously and then getting this document in my email. And of course, the reason is, I wasn't involved in the meetings where there was a lot more discussion, and maybe, I should have been. I don't know. It becomes a question though then of how does this group really set priorities? As a group go off and bring them back, but then I think there has to be lots of time for discussion of those things in the meetings. Otherwise, why in the world have a commission? Just send a group off, have them develop something and say, okay, that's what we're going to do. I realize again that, that's a time consuming exercise, but for me personally, that's what we're here for, is to have those discussions in some level of detail. I realize it can't go on forever, so I guess the only thing I'd say is that for me, it's important that we talk about that and come to an agreement as a group about, okay, how do we set priorities and what are the in the criteria that we use to set those priorities. So just a comment to, say, I really would like for us to spend some time on that at our next meeting.
I'll
Thank you.
remind the commission that we are building the plane as we're flying it. When you're in that kind of situation, sometimes you make decisions, right? And then go back and change them later. But Carol, thanks very much for raising this but for the conversation that we've already had, we would have had some discussion about this. But again, I asked commissioners to look at it, make their comments and be prepared for us to have a discussion at our next meeting. Next, Adrian.
Sure. So, as I stated before, I met with the lead from the transition team. I also had a meeting with the two new council, Tinkler, which is District 9, and McBride, which is District 3. I wouldn't go into details about the comments, but I will state that they are very open to HARC, and there are two issues that they hold tight to them, which is gentrification and minority-owned businesses. So they look forward to hearing how HARC is going to work in the different communities and work along with leadership when it comes to those two topics. And the Gullah Geechee Heritage Preservation Project, they received the RFPs. Those went in. I was at that meeting. We know that the proposals were coming for a consultant firm who has expertise in the Gullah Geechee community, where they're going to be working with community leaders to document, to give documentations for that heritage group. I also was invited to the, well, let me just say this. This is the challenge with the position and the seat that I sit in. Most of the time I'm called in when it's near the end, not during the planning process. So while I thank the Charleston Fire Department, I was brought in when we were at the end for the finalists. From what I understood, there were 13 who were considered. I was serving in an advisory role for the DEI assessment, which should be completed mid-2024. The reason that they're bringing along the assessment is because the racial demographics of the CPD currently as a whole is 91% white male.
The CFD.
CFC, I'm sorry.
Department.
I am so sorry, Charleston
Fire
Police
Department.
Department. 91% white, that's the Charleston Fire Department. Of the department, it has 126 firefighters, 90% of those are white, and 67 fire captains, 97% are white. 98% of the 78 fire engineers are all white. They recently had a new, I'm not sure the correct term, I want to say crew, or it could be cohort, that came of new firefighters. There were 37 who graduated on Friday. They make up the most diverse group, and that's because they're 78% white. So there are opportunities.
One black person. I was told there was one.
Oh, okay.
One of the 37 happened to black, since you provide those other numbers.
Yes. So I just wanted to give some background on,
Maybe you said it and I wasn't listening.
Mhm.
But, you started to say that you were called in at the end of a selection process for what? What's this? What are they choosing?
they were doing proposals. So they
It was
were
an RFP for a consultant to help them with.
the DEI assessment.
Oh, okay. So an outside consultant's gonna help them
Yes.
rework their hiring in order to be more diverse.
Yes, hiring, retention, and upward mobility when it comes to those who are already in the department.
And they haven't picked the consultant yet.
The consultant has been picked. The consultant, well, the consultant has been picked. I'm not sure if the consultant has accepted yet, because this happened last week, but they're working on a contract.
Thank you.
Jason, do you have a comment on that?
Just a comment on that. Are you done, Adrian, or?
Yes, go.
Okay, sorry. So I just, when we hear those numbers, because there was a article in the newspaper maybe a few weeks ago about the fire department doing that. And I'm not a contributor on social media, but I do like to read the comments because it gives me a sense of at least what that crazy segment of the world is thinking.
Right.
And there was a lot of comments regarding, this is a super woke agenda. We should just hire the best and brightest. Why are we trying to hire folks based on color? And I understand that comment, meaning that we should be hiring the best and the brightest, regardless of their race. But I think it's important to acknowledge, because the school district has the same challenges with teachers. When folks say, well, why are we only, why is the teaching staff not representative of the kids in the classroom? Part of it is how we recruit, where we recruit. So data is important. So when you're thinking about the fire department particularly, and I don't have an answer, but my guess is that where you're recruiting tends to be more white, or there are just not a lot of African Americans wanting to be firefighters. So it's nothing against the city per se in our recruiting efforts. My question, and maybe this is a conversation for a later date, is, what is the baseline? Like, what is the pool? When we talk about teachers, particularly African American men as teachers, there's not a whole lot to choose from. So when the numbers are really low, it's not that the district isn't trying, it's that the colleges aren't producing the graduates. So it's all I'm saying is it's a nuanced conversation. And I want folks to understand that it's not some sort of woke agenda from the city, that it is truly an effort to diversify the force. But I think it's a legitimate question to ask, where we're recruiting, how we're recruiting. So.
Additional portions of your report? Okay. Any comments for the good of the order?
So when we were talking earlier, Jerry, I was asking about this, but so what's happening with you now, right? You're going off.
So Jimmy Bragg will be sitting there, he's the new representative for District 3, which moved out of downtown. That was part of my decision to step up and allow my seat to be absorbed into downtown demographic shifts. Data was clear that most folks need representation, and that's what I preach, right? Equity is not just racial equity, but equity is demographic. So anyway, so that happened. So I had some slight regrets. I'll still be.
Excuse me. Sorry, can you turn on our mics? Are the mics on?
Here we go. I'm sorry.
You're good.
Maybe Councilman-elect McBride will do me a solid and appoint me as the District 3, but my intent is to stay on, so.
Right, we'll make it happen.
Yeah. I'll just come to meetings and sit here and. Apparently we don't need a quorum, right?
We're in the other comment section. I think we've got wonderful, high priority things that we're focused on. I just want to comment on the history and culture part, that I'm not letting that slide. There are other things going on. Charleston is very important to the nation. We are coming up on, I got to make sure it's the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution, which is the sesquicentennial is the proper word. And a lot of people don't know this, but everybody has heard of the Boston Tea Party, but they were latecomers. The first Tea Party was right here in Charleston at the Exchange Building. We didn't dump it in the harbor. We seized it, we auctioned it off and bought money for powder and took the money, bought powder and shot. So a little bit more, I think we did a little bit better job. There is an organization behind the 250th for every state, but South Carolina has its own. Before the Tea Party reenactment, which was really neat here on Saturday the 2nd, They have a meeting of the organization, commission is behind it. They do have some funding, they have some grant money for things starting at 250. Now we're through the utility tender process. So we're going to take off here, December 2nd. We're working out, of course, to July 4th, 1776, which will be our 2026. Right after Carolina Day, which is where the British got their first defeat ever. Again, it's right from Charleston. So Congress has designated 4 cities, New York, Philadelphia, Boston, and Charleston, for special celebration efforts as part of this 10-year commemoration. So that's what's going on. Minority and ethnic representation was well presented in the dramatization and on the commission. Cecil, let me think. Jenny Harriet with the Cecil Williams South Carolina Civil Rights Museum and Larry D. Watson, PhD of South Carolina State University are both on the commission. I think they're doing a great job. Anything you can think of like that, I've got some of their contact info. So other cool things are happening that lets us focus on the things that I think are frankly more pertinent and higher priority, which I think we're doing. So after we're done, if you would like, I have something of interest that is associated with the Gullah Geechee community, but really is a low country, probably pre-Indian medicinal. And when we're done, if anybody's interested, I'll go into this.
So a question, the Dr. Martin Luther King summit this January 11th, the city is a sponsor. Last year, we received an invitation for folks to sit at the city's table. Do we have any information, any such requests this year?
Yes, so the city is a sponsor and the city does have a table for the MLK breakfast. So my only question to you all is, I need to know who is wanting to come, because I don't need to purchase another table for Hark if there's only a few who are coming. We can fill in the city's table.
What day of the week?
The 11th? So the question might be, being present at the breakfast is one way to participate. Another way to participate is to, have a patron ad kind of thing. And then the question also is, here's a situation, and raising this in the context, the city is a sponsor, we are a city organization. Do we simply roll on the city's presence, or do we attempt to create more presence for ourselves? I raise this again, of course, as much to think about, okay, as well as to act in terms of indicating if you're interested in attending and want to put in a request to be at one of the city table, at one of the city seats at 10. That please let Adrian know that.
I'm pretty sure it's Tuesday the 16th. Early in the morning.
Okay.
But there's really cool things going on, starting the 11th, that's an additional date. They're having some sort of forum over in Isle of Palms or Sullivan Island, so that would be a smaller setting. My favorite thing is Sunday night, the 14th, they have the ecumenical service. I think it's in Mount Moriah. And they make awards. They're awarding a recipient for the Harvey Gantt Award. And they do a lot of other recognitions of people who contributed in the spirit of sacrificial life to the community. It's a really great kids there. That's the 14th.
So,
Greg is on.
right, so the calendar that I see says MLK Summit Breakfast at 7 a.m. Thursday, January 11th at the Gilliard.
they switched the breakfast from Tuesday. Last year, it was on the Thursday before MLK weekend.
Yeah, that's just on the official,
Mhm.
official posting.
Okay, say that again.
Okay, you're right.
January 11th, 7 a.m. at the Gilliard. Okay. All right. Good productive meeting. Anything else to come before us? If not, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.